You were born with individual strengths and a unique purpose. Don't let fears, false beliefs, or life's happenings diminish your influence. It's time to live and lead for impact. Host Kirsten Ross, expert of transformation, will help you defeat the drama and overcome the trauma that can stop you in your tracks. You'll gain focus, find confidence, and take bold action. Unleash passionate, purposeful you. Let's go.
Welcome to Live and Lead for Impact. I'm Kirsten Ross Vogel, your host, and this is episode 245. Just so you know, this podcast is a really important part of the Impact Academy that you can find at myimpactacademy.com/join. Definitely check it out. It has almost 20 years of digital resources that I've created over many years to serve my clients, and twice a month time with me via Zoom in group coaching and strategy sessions. So you definitely want to check it out. Go to that link. You'll get 2 weeks free and check out all the resources. And in the meantime, I want to introduce an amazing guest that I have for today. Can't wait to get to know more about her business and share her with all of you. Her name is Marley Majcher. She's the CEO of The Party Goddess, a nationally acclaimed full-service event planning and catering company, and author of But Are You Making Any Money? A witty and lauded business guide for smart entrepreneurs just like you, and a leading small business expert in Los Angeles, California. From understated elegance to rockstar fabulous, Majcher is known for creating the most talked about parties of the year for a client list ranging from top tier businesses to A-list celebrities such as Pierce Brosnan and Sofia Vergara. But she's quickly establishing herself as one of the best resources for small business owners and entrepreneurs. Heralded is a must-read for any entrepreneur. Majcher's book, But Are You Making Any Money, simplifies in a step-by-step process the complicated aspects of running a lucrative business. Her profit technique and conversational style is what Forbes says makes you want to keep reading more. And you can find more about her at mini.theprofitgoddess.com. Oh my goodness. Welcome, Marley.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to getting to learn more about you and your business.
Well, it's going to be fun. I love your podcast. I've been doing my homework and listening, and it's fun. You have 2 tons of energy. So that is, I can see why you have 20 years of digital resources available. My goodness.
I do. I love what I do, as I'm sure you do too. And it's so super fun when, tell me if you've had this experience. People say like, how much do you work, or how do you spend your time, or all of that kind of thing. And I'm like, wow, I don't track it because I love what I do. I certainly make sure that I've got balance and I'm being intentional about, finding time for the different parts of my life. But shoot, I've never just tracked how much time I'm spending because I love what I do so much.
Well, that is hilarious because I wrote a book on time tracking. So literally on tracking your time, but it's good.
Let's duke it out. No.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is that when somebody kind of intrinsically knows what delivers, their goals, and as you said, you're intentional about it. That's the key piece. It's, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But what happens with so many entrepreneurs is they have no idea where they spend their time. And that,
and you have to have that rejuvenation time.
No. Yeah. And if you don't naturally have that switch that sort of kicks in and says, whoa, that's when you get in trouble. So it's awesome when you naturally, or, I should say naturally after 20 years to be the overnight success of having that switch. Then you're good, but most people don't have it. So,
yeah. Well, and I think entrepreneurs a lot of times have a tendency to be wired for a 24/7 blend is what I call it, which is awesome, really. Again, as long as you can manage it well, but when you're truly blending life and work all together, you can be super efficient, because I pay attention to my high energy times, my high focus times. I'm a morning person, so that's going to happen in the morning if I'm writing a book or, doing like major focus stuff. But later in the day, I can do other things that are a little more, don't require as much focus. And if I need to go to the grocery store or run an errand, I can do it when other people aren't likely there, which is super nice. Overall, very, very efficient. Yes. But so tell me though, we're going to talk about your book and your event planning business. So tell me a little bit more about first the event planning.
So I started out in the restaurant business. business. And then we took over a banquet operation and a catering facility. And after a very long, dramatic story, I decided like events were what I absolutely loved, because I loved the idea that, you still had all the components like food and beverages and, entertainment and fun stuff like that. But each event was different because it was in a different space. It was for a different client with a different set of goals and different number of people. And so at that time, when I started the Party Goddess, which was 2000, people were just starting to have event planners, right? Because before it used to just be big corporations, or it'd be like, you'd have if you are having a big wedding, you'd have a big wedding planner, but it wasn't just regular people having an event planner. And then you could hang out your shingle kind of on the internet. And in those days, everybody was, our biggest fear was like, oh, somebody stole my photos for their website. Now they can steal your entire identity, but and be like, oh, these photos are mine. But pretty much you could hang out your shingle, and it was like, okay, I say I'm a great event planner, I must be. Well, the piece about that is it's great. There are no barriers to entry. But the other piece is that it was really kind of the Wild West. And so what I realized, being in a very saturated market like Los Angeles, is that I had to do something to stand out. And so what I decided to focus on was this whole piece of celebrity clients, because what I realized was even my wealthiest friends, like growing up, what always amazed me was that, we could be on vacation reading a magazine, and these girls could be wealthier than any of the celebrities we're reading about. And it would be like, oh my gosh, so-and-so uses this cream. Oh my gosh, so-and-so uses, and I was like, you could like own them, but yet the influence of high profile people. And I was like, well, whatever. I mean, if all you have to say is, hey, listen, XYZ was my client, not saying why, but I mean, if that's the case, then, and that elevates me as an event planner, okay, like I'll play the game. And it really made a huge difference. And so I started to be very, like, to use your word, intentional about the clients we got, and that really transformed the brand. Now there's a big but in there. What a lot of entrepreneurs do, and what I find a lot of creative entrepreneurs do, and especially women, is we do not focus on the numbers. And even though I had gotten my business degree from Georgetown, I had a very difficult time applying what I learned in my own business, where you have decisions like, oh, I need to hire somebody, let me hire my friend, and then make a huge mistake, even though I know I shouldn't do that, all those things. And I ended up focusing very much on the sales component and hitting my sales numbers and goals, and not on the profit component. And when you can have a great goal of $1 million a year, which I did my first year, but you spend 1.2, you have a problem. So I ended up writing my book, But Are You Making Any Money? Really to solve my own problems. And then that took me in this whole other piece, because people couldn't understand, like, wait, you're an event planner, but you have a business book. And it was like, okay, let me explain. So now it's kind of like under the umbrella, like I have the Party Goddess, and then I have the Profit Goddess for those people who are looking to figure out what is wrong, and like, why are they not making enough money?
I love that. And you're so right. I even think of some of I'm not going to say names, but like there are websites and business gurus who the 100% focus is on how much you've earned. And I'm constantly screaming at the TV or wherever I'm seeing them. But what was the net profit?
Well, that's what I call it. All it is the money between the wallpaper and the wall. I mean, you need the margin. It's the margin. Yeah. We have our terms all mixed up. It's like, sales and this and that. And it's like, oh, XYZ company did X amount in sales. And it's like, okay, Heidi, read the Wall Street Journal. Like they, 2 lines down, it says, and they reported a net loss this quarter of 1.2 billion, and you're just like, hi, you have to pay attention to both. They both really matter.
I have to share a really funny story because so my oldest son is entrepreneurial, which I love. He's 23 now and he has a business. But anyway, when he was in middle school, that is when he started his first business. And he would have his business meetings, quote unquote, with his friend in the gym locker room while they were getting ready for gym class.
Very efficient.
And they came up with a name, they came up with a logo, and it was around designing skateboard decks. Okay. And, and they were doing YouTube videos. I mean, and really all of this, I was not coaching much around any of that. Like really, they were figuring it out, website, the whole shebang. But anyway, one day my son came to me and he said, it seems like for everything that we're having to spend on the blank decks and then how much time it's taking to do it doesn't feel like we're making enough money. And I was like, bang, I'm like, yes. I go, you know what? You just learned about margin and net profit. Very good.
And boy, is it good that he learned early, because so many entrepreneurs, they don't make that connection, or they think, oh, okay, well, I'll just try harder, or I'll just get more clients, or I'll just expand my product offerings. And instead you have to just stop the train on the tracks and say, wait a minute. I mean, maybe it is a thing if you need more clients. I have rarely found that with the people I coach. It's more, there's something wrong with your margins and how much time you're spending, to get your clients and with your clients, and how much it takes to produce that product or service. And until that number is brought in front of people, like, do you realize you just made $5 on this? They, then they're sick to their stomachs. But it's amazing how long people will go without stopping to really realize what are those numbers.
Yeah. And you just mentioned like hiring a friend, which honestly, that's one of my most popular podcasts ever, is like you hired one and like be real about your reasons. But also it's funny. So the secondary little, learning opportunity that my son had was, he's like, it really feels like I'm doing a lot more of the work and I don't know what to do about it. And so I coached him about, well, you got to go have the tough conversation and really make sure that the roles are, and does this make sense? Get the expectations clear. And then does it still make sense for both of you? So,
now my question is to you as the coach, have you ever seen it where the friend, where everybody's doing equal work and is happy? I mean, I know what happens on the Today Show. They always say, oh yes, we're great partners and we have been forever. But I don't know. I have never, ever seen it where somebody hires the best friend, or they start it together and they're like, oh, this is awesome. We both just love to work 24/7. It's like, no, somebody's having a baby, somebody got married, somebody's, traveling, whatever.
Well, and the discomfort of having that conversation because there's more at stake. And, I mostly actually work with family businesses. So, I mean, talk about, a lot at stake in those relationships, but that's why I love, that's my favorite place to play, because of, everything we're dealing with. But so I go in and fix the relationship. Yeah. So, and I mean, sometimes they're not having Thanksgiving together anymore because of all the, friction. But I would say, and unfortunately, and I'm sure you've experienced the same thing, they come to you after the fact, after it's gone awry, and they're like, now what do I do? And I'm like, well, I wish you would ask me right away. Cause they can, if you have really important conversations and both are able to set good boundaries and be good assertive communicators, which is rare. Then it can work because you're setting the ground rules up front and you're saying like, we're separating the business relationship from the family or personal relationship. But that never happens. They're like, oh my gosh, it's going to be great. Cause we've known each other since
forever. We know what would
I literally just had a really bad snafu with a new hairdresser, like the most horrendous. I won't go into the details, but let's just say I left with wet hair and and dye down half my forehead because she told me there was nothing she could do to get it off my skin, and she told me to use Windex when I got home. And this was a high end. Yeah, I know. I was like, cause like I saw that she had slapped it on, but I wasn't worried. Cause like, I've never been to a place where they're not just wiping it off and anyway, never have I had this kind of experience. And I called the owner a couple weeks later just to say, I don't want anything, but I just kept thinking like, as the business owner, I would want to know. And lo and behold, she said, we have been friends since middle school. And I'm thinking, she's not treating your business like she's your friend.
Oh, she sure is not.
Me. Yeah.
No, that's a deal waiting to happen.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not going to make it public, but
I get it.
Anyway, so I love this. So tell me, when you're working with clients around the becoming profitable, what are some of the areas that you really focus on? I mean, I definitely hear the numbers, but what else?
Well, ironically, it's kind of, it's just funny to me that that's the one thing you started with, is the first thing I do is have them track their time, because I'm track their time for a week. And a lot of times I work with, women clients, and unfortunately they are very familiar with the diet mentality. And I'm like, think of it literally like a diet, right? Like the first time you go on a diet, you are like, gosh, I don't understand. Like I barely ate. Like, how did I not lose any weight this week? And I remember when I did it one time with my trainer, and she's like, okay, it's one thing not to lose weight in a week. It's like another thing to gain a pound, which I had done. And I was like, oh, like maybe I'm in ketosis. Maybe, I had every excuse in the book. And, but the thing is that when you write it down, you realize, oh, wow, like I did have 10 M&Ms, and I did have like a third of my daughter's sandwich. And granted, it was only a third, but all those things add up. And yes, I had a cappuccino and it was non-fat, but milk does have some calories. And when you start adding it up, it's like that cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And so when I have people track their time, I find, unlike you, they are totally oblivious to how long it really takes to do something, whether it's type a contract, whether it's meet a client, or how much time they spend on the phone with a prospective client who, by the way, they should have figured out 50 minutes ago can never afford them in the first place. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is we want to get the business, or we want to close that client. And so we spend all this time with them. And then the next thing you know, the client isn't a fit, wants you to reduce your rates. And then you start in this whole spiral of spending too much time on the wrong person. Then you can't service the clients that you should be working with, et cetera. And so what it does for me is it's like a cheat sheet. It just reveals, it reveals where the issues are. And I can say, okay, you spent X amount today on, Instagram and social media and whatever. By the way, that could be great. That's what drives a lot of people's businesses. But when you add it up and then you say, okay, listen, tell me how much business did you get out of, all these Instagram posts, Facebook, et cetera. And, first people will try to say, hey, well, that takes a while. And I'm like, okay, so talk to me about the business you got 6 months ago. And it's like, And the point is, when you keep asking the questions, A, they don't really know the answers. And B, for me, it's just about getting them to be purposeful. It's like, listen, I don't care if you spend all your time on YouTube videos. In fact, that might be the best thing you could spend your time on. But what I want them to know is that they've got a plan. A, like you said, when are they most productive? When do they need to do what I call the heavy lifting? If it's in the morning, then in the morning, don't be on your email and checking Facebook. Right? You have to really concentrate on what are your top goals. And then what we do is we sub out the 3 things in their week that are not producing, and we sub them out for the 3 things that are their most, their biggest, heaviest hitters, where it's, okay, these 3 things, when you call clients or when you meet somebody for lunch that you've done business with before, then you really turn it around. Well, then it's magic, because you're going from the bottom to the top. So that's when they really see the results. But it really boils down to, how do you spend your time?
I love it. And oh my gosh, talk about, social media and the rabbit holes you can end up with if you're not super intentional. And I love that. So you're starting with a lot of time, we talk about the dollars as a currency, right? And dollars don't lie. And a lot of people aren't doing the math, but really time is a currency too. And so once you're doing the math, you need to do both.
Well, right. But time is the only non-renewable resource, if you think about it.
Right.
Money, you can always make more money, right? People go bankrupt all the time and come back. They go bankrupt. The average millionaire has gone bankrupt, 2.4 times. Now it's probably like 3.9 times. But you can come back, right? We can create more fill in the blank, but time, it goes and it's gone. And so what I find is kind of one of my methods is I try to explain to people, you can't read the label from inside the jar. And what I say to them is, it's like, think of like when your friend is dating somebody or married to somebody who's just a jerk, and everybody can see it, the person. It's like, because they're inside the jar, they can't see what is so obvious to the rest of us. And as soon as they track their time and put it on paper, they start to see it, but then I really see it. And I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. I kind of put it into buckets, and I'm like, okay, this is your social media bucket. This is your admin bucket. This is your, intake kind of proposals, new client bucket. And it is amazing how it's just like, well, duh, here's why you don't have enough business. You're not spending anywhere near the time you need to developing new business. And it just sheds a light. And I find, to me, it's like a fast track. It's like the cliff notes to where the issue is.
Yeah. I love that you're having them write it down too. Yeah. I'm thinking back to, Weight Watchers and things like that. When you were talking about the food, that's part of their big success strategy is just writing it down. And so, as a coach, you're not having to try to talk them into the self-awareness. You're like, let that black and white on paper do the work.
Well, right. And then what I do to crystallize it is I say to them, like, well, how much do you want to make an hour? And they'll, toss out a number, or I will have to coax it out of them. But the point is that when you show them what they're currently doing and how much they are currently taking home for those activities, and you show them what their hourly rate is. And I do this exercise in my book. When you do this exercise, I was like, okay, here's your hourly rate. When I did it, I would have been making more money working at McDonald's, and a lot of entrepreneurs would be. And I thought to myself, I probably should work at McDonald's, because then I wouldn't go to McDonald's after I was so stressed after an event, and I would like have a 401k probably, and I'd have like the free shift meal, and I wouldn't have any of these issues or stress that I bring home. But you don't, until you just stop. And I find we just, in our culture especially, we just love to be busy. It's like this busy is this badge of honor, and it's busy is baloney. It's forget about being busy.
I love alliteration. Busy is baloney. I love that. Oh my gosh, the busy piece. There are so many times, and I know you probably have tricks that you share with your clients, but again, downtime, we feel like people feel so much guilt and like, oh, but how am I going to be able to tell everyone how I'm so busy? All that. There's so many trip ups and roadblocks for us just taking time for self-care. And so I literally have started having people visualize a cocoon. Yeah. And I'm like, just call it your chrysalis phase. Like, it can look like no activities happening. And guess what? Like, you don't even have to be actively thinking about stuff. Right. So it's even beyond that. But I had a client one time when we were in I had been working with her individually, but this is over the past year. So it was via Zoom. But so I'd been doing individual coaching with her weekly, and I knew that she was tired. But then I was doing a leadership team coaching, and I was watching her, and she looked sick and tired, and her eyes were at half mast. So afterwards, I got a hold of her right away. I'm like, what is going on? And she had been feeling really sick for a while. And I'm like, you have to take time off. I have to. No, I had to force. And I'm like, stay in your pajamas, bathrobe, whatever it is, have someone come in and give you a massage at home. And she just fought me on it. But that next week, she had done it, and she was like, thank you so much. But oh my gosh, why is it so hard to get people to take time off?
Because I think we are, and I think it's getting worse, because we are focused on the outside. We're focused on what's happening on Instagram and Facebook and all these perfectly photoshopped and painted lives that we're saying, oh my gosh, I'm not there yet. And so is. So I better try harder. But instead of just trying harder, it's like the ladder's up against the wrong wall in the meantime. So it's great, keep going up and down the ladder, but you're climbing the wrong freaking building, But Stephen Covey has a great thing in his book about, you take 1 minute to plan, planning for 1 minute saves 4 minutes. And it's true, it does. You don't just go, oh, I'm going to go to New York and then just get on the next plane. It's like, well, dude, what city are you leaving from? I mean, because if I'm coming from LA, that's one thing. If I'm coming from, freaking London, I'm going in a different direction. But people don't. That you've got to stop and just take a second and say, where do I want to go? And what is the shortest distance between 2 points? Or, by the way, what is the most colorful distance between 2 points? Or what's the most relaxing distance between 2 points? Whatever their goals are. It doesn't have to be about money, but it does have to be it has to be intentional.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, with all the clients that you've worked with, I always ask this because I think as entrepreneurs, like busy people, I want to fuel that passion, but it's always so inspirational to hear about the impact that someone else has made. And so what is one impact, if I had you think quickly about who comes to mind, where you really made a difference for someone, one of your clients, and that's your go-to that really fuels your passion?
Well, we have a particular client that we've worked with for 1 million years, and I'm going to have to be careful so I don't reveal too much, but she has an event every year, and she was married, and we did the event for her every year. And by all outside appearances, I mean, anybody in the world would be jealous of her because they say it's a fabulous party. She does it every year. And then one year she was divorced or separated at the time. And you could just tell she was at a crossroads. Like, do I have the party? Because I used to always have it, with my husband. Do I? But it's her favorite party, favorite thing to do. And, by now we'd worked together for a long time. And I was like, listen, have the party. Like, you need something to focus on. Yes, I know it's embarrassing, or it seems like all eyes are on you, but nobody really cares, Okay, so you ditch the guy, whatever. But you could just see her like light up. You could just see somebody like at the party. You could just see she went from kind of hiding and feeling horrible to like, I can do this. And that might seem like, okay, well, we didn't cure world hunger. I mean, we can talk about a lot of those different conversations and, volunteer things. But I think sometimes we minimize the impact we can have just on a daily basis by just encouraging people, and just saying, listen, you can do this. Get out there, like get out of your pajamas. You've got 2 kids, like show an example that you got to just get out of bed no matter how lousy the situation is. And, he had cheated on her. And it was all this stuff. But she really, from that point, and then it turned around. She just kind of needed a coming out party, and she didn't bash him. She didn't, it was nothing about him, but she just needed that extra push to be like, you know what, you have got this. And I think as coaches, it's the same, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, sometimes we just need to help our clients get out of their heads and say, no, enough. Come on, you can do this. So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so it goes back to, it's not the curing world hunger story, but it's kind of like that like very trite thing where they, the person sees the starfish and there's a million of them on the beach and then throws it into the ocean and says, oh, well, all the rest of them are going to die. And the person's like, yeah, but it mattered to that one. And it's kind of the same thing. And then that person has a ripple effect, so.
Exactly. And I was just going to point out, it's so interesting that each of our stories had a, like, either get in your pajamas and stay there or get out of your pajamas. So you need that outside perspective sometimes when you're stuck in your ways. And that's the power of a coach. We're on your side, we're cheering you on. And, we're not just there. Sometimes our friends have very good intentions, but they're just going to kind of go with what, you're saying. But with a coach, you have now given us license to speak into your life.
Well, and also too, something that I coach people about is like, look at the agenda. An agenda doesn't have to be a bad word, but sometimes your friends they're encouraging you to kind of be stuck. They're not doing it, as I say, intentionally. They're not trying. But if, especially I find when people are trying to up level their game or do something new, their old world feels safe, but their old world is not part of their goals. You know what I mean? They have loftier goals. And so you just have to be aware and pay attention and then behave accordingly. But a coach, if it's the right coach, has the agenda of let's get you where you want to go. And if that means, oh my gosh, girl, you need to take a bath every day for the next 7 days because you are so, overworked, then that's what the coach needs to say. But sometimes the coach needs to say, get off your rump and focus here, like enough of the pity party, because sometimes the pity party goes on too long and then it's just not good.
Exactly. Yeah. And we don't have skin in the game on the, the personal relationship, that kind of thing. Like we're just, no, this is like 100% your agenda, like you said, and helping you get there. There's things that are in your blind spot. Right. So for you personally, what's been the biggest internal or external challenge that you've had to overcome, and how did you overcome it?
I think for me, the biggest challenge I had to overcome was the idea that I think because in my first business, I was so focused on the sales component and had trouble with like, where is all the money really going? Like just kind of that confusion of, but I just did X amount in sales. How could I have so little left in my bank account? And it's a money issue, but what it affects everything. it affects your relationships, it affects marriage, it affects all that stuff. If A, you don't feel good about yourself or what you're doing, B, if you're just in a state of confusion, and then with money, it's shame and all these things. And so what I really probably am so proud of is that I was so challenged and in the thick of things. And it's very hard to be in a tornado and still organize, your house. And I still did that. And I just was like, no, this is going to change. This story is going to change. I am once and for all going to figure this out. And I did. And then I came up with a system that worked for me. It wasn't a system that worked would work maybe in Wall Street, but I needed a very simple system that was, went towards my colorful personality and way of organizing things. And I overcame it. And now that I've overcome it, I can teach it to other people. I can do my system in my sleep. But I would say that has been the biggest like, haha, I could, I did it type of thing.
That's great. And I love that you've taken what you've learned through maneuvering through this same challenge and created a roadmap for other people. So That's amazing. What words of wisdom do you have for others who want to make their own impact in the world?
I would say, it's the classic thing of what are you passionate about? But I would say, what are you passionate about? And I think there are intersections that have to come into play. If you want to make an impact, you have to do something that not everybody is doing. So you can't just say, oh, I'm passionate about, feeding the hungry. It's like, okay, are you passionate about feeding the hungry? And what is your secret sauce to get the hungry fed, for example, that not everybody is already doing? And that goes with business, or that goes with philanthropy. And then it goes with, and like, where are your strengths? Like not only what does the world need and what it lights your fire, but what can you really do better than anybody else? And that's where you're going to have the most impact. And I find when you have the most impact is when you feel the most satisfied and the best. And then that's like the natural fuel that keeps you going.
Yeah. Too often I feel like people, the feed the hungry thing, for instance, like, is it really fueling your passion, or are you doing the lazy river way of doing life where someone said, or you want it to look a certain way? And that is not going to keep you tenacious through what you're going to need to keep it going.
Right. Because sometimes it's like, well, you get on the board because it's going to look, as you say, look good to be on the board, or because you need to network, or because but when somebody really pushes you like a coach and somebody really says, do you really, well, yeah, I mean, my friends aren't. No, do you love the work? Do you love those board meetings and because there are a million ways to serve. But if you just settle for what you think you should do, not going to work. Not long-term anyway.
Yeah. I think about a board that I was on where it was absolutely aligned with an area that I wanted to make an impact. Mm-hmm. But the promise was it was a working board and I was really going to make a difference. Yeah. But through each time that I tried to utilize my knowledge and expertise and give, it was shut down because, whatever, red tape, blah, 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 whatever. It doesn't matter why. But like ultimately then that was not a right fit for me, because that is not, I'm a resource. We're all a resource, a valuable resource. So kind of using just the term resource probably sounds minimalist, but no, we are a valuable resource in our time. Like you said, it's a resource that we don't get back. And so we have to be so intentional. And so, if you're not, if you're spending time on things that you love, but it's not ultimately making a difference, then you got to shift something for sure.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I have my clients start with is how they're spending their time. So that is the gifts, like those things that come as second nature to us, which a lot of times, by the way, I'm sure you've seen this, we minimize it because, oh my gosh, that's so easy. Anyone can do that. There's nothing special about that. Well, not everyone can. Right. So like, look at those things. And then where do you feel that call to action? So the true sweet spot is we are wired for different strengths, and we're also wired with different calls to action. And there are so many different ways that we can use our gifts. Right. And so if you can align those two, do the brainstorming, wipe the slate clean brainstorming of combining those two, that is where you really feel the fuel.
Yeah. You're exactly right. But it does take that introspection time, and you have to stop and you have to get off the hamster wheel and be like, wait, what am I doing? How did I get here? Where do I want to go?
Absolutely. And I know we've both used the word so much today. Intentional. That's the special word of the day.
That's the word of the day. Intentional. INTEN. Yeah. But it's true. And most people are not intentional. They think they are, but they're not.
Yeah. Well, go right to like, why did you make this decision? Again, were
Right.
you afraid to say no to somebody? Did you
Right.
think it would look good? Like, was fear driving you? Like, were
Right.
you running away from something instead of moving powerfully towards something? You know, like
Right.
you gotta remove, and that does require that outside perspective. It really does, to help you like get out of those blind, reveal the blind spots.
Right. Well, it requires an outside perspective if you don't want it to take 100 years. And then, oh, by the way, you're done.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah, that's true. Yes. So thank you so much. This has been such a fun conversation. I really appreciate you coming. So just as we close out today's episode, share again, what challenge would someone be having where they might want to think, yeah, I need to contact her. And then where can they connect with you?
well, the easiest part is where to connect with me. We created this free little video course about kind of my methods so people can do a trial run. And that's at mini.theprofitgoddess.com. Of course, they can just go to theprofitgoddess.com and check out our website. But I really take people who are like kind of in that haze of I'm working all the time and I am not making the money. Like, where is it? What am I doing wrong? And they kind of just come to me in this fog. And that's when I say, okay, let's just dissect it. And it's very easy for me to dissect it. I've done it 1 billion times. I don't think I've ever worked with anybody who wasn't like, oh my gosh, like, how did you do that? And whether they implement it, that's a totally different thing. But it's like the light bulb goes off, because my agenda is to get them where they want to go and kind of bring them out of the darkness. So it's sort of like, I'm confused and I'm working all the time, and why am I not making more? And then you go, I'm going to call her.
Great. So listen, if you're struggling, which I don't know, there's not too many people who are struggling with that. So if you're struggling with that, definitely go check out mini.theprofitgoddess.com to have a mini experience in working with Marley. And of course, that link and access to Marley's social media will all be on today's show notes. You can find those by going to defeatthedrama.com, click on the podcast tab, and go to episode 245. Thanks for listening. As always, I'm Kirsten Ross Fogel, your host, and I'm going to invite you to, again, check out myimpactacademy.com/join for all kinds of resources around businesses and communication and leadership and all that good stuff. So go check that out as well. So make it a great day, and thanks so much. Get out there. The world is waiting for your impact.